Yeah.
This nails the head on Pirate fans. We bitch and moan because we are Pirates fans. Let's start out there and also preference back to this whole week. Yes, we're entitled to. We are Pirate fans. So we bitch and moan because we are Pirate fans. And regardless of who we sign during the rest of the start of the season, what are your thoughts on this team? If all goes right, which is a lot, it's potentially a wild card team pushing to win a division, especially this one. That's my opinion. What say you? And we all know who we would want to sign before the season. The question is, as is moving forward. Jim, what are the 2024 Pirates?
Ooh. I think they're a pretty volatile team right now. Like, there's a wide range of what this team is capable of doing, depending on how the younger players develop or don't develop. I tend to agree with him that this team is certainly capable of being in the mix for a wild card spot. Especially with the expanded wild card. Like, you're talking about 83 wins. That area means you got a shot, right, at making the playoffs. And I think this team is probably more like a 75 to 76 win team at the current moment. But, there's variance there, right? I mean, things go your way, you win a few extra games, boom, you're right there. I don't think this team in its current makeup, even with the way this division is right now, is even capable of winning it. Like, I feel like the Central's weird in that there are also a lot of other teams that are kind of in the same boat as the Pirates. Like, there are other teams out there who I think are capable of doing more than what they're projected to do, or doing less what they're projected to do, right? You look at the Cardinals. Like, the Cardinals should be better this year, but what if they aren't? Like, what if their young guys don't take steps forward? What if all this whole time it was Yadier Molina keeping that team together, and as soon as he left, it just all goes to shit. I don't know, but I kind of keep looking at the Reds too as a team where, like, if just a few of those young guys keep their progression and development, like, I think that's a team that has a much better shot of winning this division than the Pirates. There's a lot to go there. The Brewers too, like there's a lot of question marks in this division, just across the board. So, I guess that's my answer. Like, it's hard for me to say now. I think there's still some moves to be made. Like, if like, gun to my head, Jim, what's this team going to do this year? 76 and 86. Like, that's my prediction, probably where we're sitting right now. But things could go bad. Like, things could go bad. Things could go good. Like, the starting rotation is not what you want to see right now. The young guys, we haven't seen a whole lot of development from them outside of Jack Sawinski. So, like, does anyone else actually get better? I don't know. Is O'Neal Cruz an MVP candidate? Like, there's a lot of questions. So I think this team is good enough that we're at least talking about meaningful baseball games going into September. I don't know if they have the capability to get to the finish line.
Good answer. I think this is something we've talked about at length all year. And I feel like maybe sometimes it gets misconstrued. I don't think any of us hate this team. I don't think any of us think this team's god awful. Like, this isn't the same vibe as 2020, 2021, 2022, right? Even 2023. When like last year we were talking it up a little bit. Like that. I mean, there were bare minimum moves, but like, hey, they actually went and got like the bare minimum. Like, they got us Santana, they got Kutch. Like, it's not going to be awful, at least, right? So the floor is risen. There's some quality to this team. I think when we talk negatively, right, about this offseason and such, and it correlates to the team, it comes off maybe thinking that, like, we think this team's awful, and it's not. And again, like I think I talked about a little bit on NSN Live this past week, and I'll say it again. There's talent on this team. I think it's somewhat limited to others. And you bring it up, I'll bring it up, and because they love to get on me about this, but like the Reds, right? And we talked to this behind the scenes last night, but the Reds made that turnaround very quickly, and they brought in a lot of talent. And you know what? Last year, it pretty much seemingly all hit too. Like when the Pirates brought up their rookies, they all struggled, and when the Reds brought up their rookies, they pretty much all played well for the most part, right, on both sides. So it's like there's a lot of talent for the Reds, and they seem to be already a step ahead as far as development. So like that kind of worries you, as you're talking about this team. But they could go flat too, right? Like if you think the Pirates could take that next step and be better, then you can't in the same mouth, right? Same different side of it, talk negative about the Reds because they could absolutely do the same thing. They've already done it better, right? But like we're going back to this team is like, yeah, there's just so many variants because it's a young team and there's a lot of unsures with it. You don't know what these prospects are going to do because they've had limited at bats. And in those limited at bats, they were poor or innings thrown, right? And it's just like what's frustrating is if you do believe in this team, then why did they supplement it with better stuff around it? That's what's frustrating. Like they have in our minds, we don't have the books, neither do you. I get it. But like $80 million for a payroll just seems totally unacceptable right now. When you have these questions, you see this division with all those flaws that you talked about, and you could go out there and just more or less take it. And you didn't. That's what's frustrating. So again, like back to the team, there's definitely a lot of things to be hopeful and excited for. But because of all the unsures and uncertainties, I can't bank on an 80-win team. I can't bank on an 85-win team. I could see that happening. If it's October 2024 and they've won 85 games, kudos to them. And like the talent is there and I'm not shocked by it. But they haven't done anything to like ensure that they will. And that's where I'm at too, because for all the reasons they could win 85 is all the reasons that they could win 70. And so what do you do when you have a team like that? You kind of chop it up in the middle. And you say 75, 76. And that's kind of like where I'm at with you as well. Like I'm just going to hedge my bets, play it safe. They could go either way. So I'm going to chop it right up in the middle and say it's probably like a 75, 76 win team because some guys will probably hit and do well and others still won't. And things even out.
Yeah, and I want to add to this, like, I feel like a lot of people are pretty positive about this team, right? And there are reasons to be, right? And you said something where you're like, we're not negative about this team. Like, we're not down on this group of guys. Like, I hate the rebuild process, right? But I also understand that, because of that, they have gotten there's a decent core here, right? And we're now in year 5, and you've got a core of guys that you've accumulated over these last few years, and you're ready to compete. I'm not down on the current team. What I'm down on is, like you said, we're in a division that's ripe for the taking, and they didn't take it, right? They did the bare minimum again. And they're really counting on this core group of guys, right? No one that they brought in outside of, Rowdy Tellez probably is like the one guy they brought in where it's like he could make an impact if he reaches his upside, right? Like if Rowdy Tellez turns into 2022 Rowdy Tellez and goes out there and hits 35 homers, that's an impactful signing for this team. Now, you can't bank on that, like you said. Like that's not something you can count on. It's another what if, right? They didn't bring in anything that you can bank on outside. Even Chapman, their best signing, right? Not if he does what he did last year, awesome. But the years prior to that were not good. Like I don't think you can bank on Aroldis Chapman being this great lockdown reliever. I think he's going to be good. Like he's a good pitcher. I'm going to bet on the talent. Like I mentioned, I'm going to bet on that talent.
Right.
But they didn't do anything this offseason to like really, really get better and say, you know what, this division's here for the taking. We're going to take it. And everything that they needed was available at one point in time, and they just didn't do it. That's the frustrating part. The frustrating part is they got to this point where, 2 years ago we were talking about one of the worst teams in baseball. Now we're talking about a team that's in a position where if you added pieces to it, they could compete for a division. And the frustrating part is they didn't do it. They added pieces basically to just fill a roster. That's the frustrating part to me. And like you mentioned, the payroll, it's just not in line with where it should be. Like you look at other teams in this division, Milwaukee and Cincinnati. That's all I'm saying. Like spend like Milwaukee and Cincinnati. You don't have to spend like the Cubs. You don't have to spend like the Cardinals. Spend like Milwaukee and Cincinnati, and you're right there in the thick of this thing. And they didn't do it.